Hello and welcome to the Blues Kind Show, the show for kind blues. We're going to be going over the recent events coming out of the club, with it recommitting to Michael Voss, confirming that he will be coaching into the last year of his contract for 2026. So, what did Carlton actually do? On Thursday, the 7th of August, they sent an email out to the members. I'm not going to read the whole thing. There was a fair bit in it. But the main takeaway is that Vossi will coach into 2026, thus honouring the last year of his deal. The email also stated this followed a presentation from Graham Wright, who will be taking over as the CEO on the 15th of August. And the recommendation to keep Voss was accepted unanimously by the board. The first question that I think is really relevant to get stuck into is, why did they do it? Why did they recommit? Why did they send the email out? Firstly, Melbourne, about a week earlier, had fired their own coach, Simon Goodwin. This broke the seal on the coach firing rumour mill that occurs every year in the AFL for clubs that are viewed to be underperforming. For anyone doubting that Carlton had a need to feed the media something to make them not constantly darken our doorstep, some of the following names were already predicting or saying that Michael Voss outright would get fired. Tom Morris, Sam McClure and Mitch Cleary had been on their respective platforms saying they expected Voss wouldn't survive into the 2026 season. There was less prominent people such as Will Schofield joining the pylon, but I don't need to go through a long list of, lesser rans. There was also speculation after a photo of Voss and Graham Wright came out on Thursday morning, just showing them having a coffee. People thought that was enough indication that he was going to get fired. Furthermore, Mitch Cleary parked himself in front of Carlton for the whole of a 5.5-hour board meeting. Also door-stopping other members of the club, including Paddy Kinnersley, who's, for those who don't know, our vice president. So, to suggest that we didn't need to give the media something in order to get them away from Icon Park for 5 minutes, I think is potentially a little bit disingenuous. The media clearly smelt a bit of blood in the water, given Simon Goodwin had recently gone. As a result, I think it was very appropriate for the club to come out and make a statement about whether or not Michael Voss would be coaching next year. So, there's 4 common criticisms of this decision that I've sort of seen. There are others, but these are the 4 main ones I wanted to go over. The first is, why did we need to come out and say anything? All we're doing is letting Michael Voss coach the last year of his deal, which is absolutely true. However, if you're suggesting that this is a non-event, I think your view is a little bit ahistorical. It's really common for coaches to get sacked in the last year of their deal. The following coaches had a year to go on their contract, and I've gone back to the 2022 season. So, this year alone, Simon Goodwin had a deal for next year. Adam Simpson, in his last year, where he got sacked, still had a year to run. The only other coaching change that season was John Longmire, who resigned. In 2023, Stuart Dew had a year to go on his contract before being sacked. Funnily enough, for Damien Hardwick, the only other coaching change, and he said he retired, we'll call it a resignation, because then he ended up filling Stuart Dew's shoes anyway. And in 2022, there was 4 coaching changes. Ben Rutten and Brett Ratton had a year to go on their contracts, while Leon Cameron did not, but he'd already had a sustained period at the Giants. And David Noble for North Melbourne was the other sacking. He had a rolling contract, so he didn't have a year to go. He had infinity to go. But, he was treated as a member of staff, not a normal sort of fixed-term deal. So, Since 2022, 9 coaches have been, we'll just say, removed from their position, because I'm including Damien Hardwick and Longmire in that. 5 of them got sacked with a year to go. So that's more than half. Only 1 got moved on in the last year of their deal. So yes, the media has conditioned the football public to expect that coaches don't go into what are referred to as lame duck years, i.e. the last year of their contract. So I think it makes a lot of sense that we came out and said something, given of the last 9 coaches that ceased in their positions, 5 of them got sacked with a year to go. The question then is, how has he kept his job? For mine, I think good clubs don't fire coaches after 1 bad year. Especially when there's other explanatory factors that I'll touch on later. So, Michael Voss's tenure as coach goes as follows. In 2022, we had 12 wins at a percentage of 108. That was an improvement on David Teague's last year, in which we only won 8 games. As you can see on the table in shot, we had not won double-digit games since we won 11 games in 2013. Now, we made the finals that year and won a final, but that was on the back of finishing 9th and Essendon getting kicked out of the finals due to their own issues. So, we had also not won 12 games since 2011, where we won 14 games. So for mine, that was an unequivocally successful season. We narrowly missed out on the finals, which was really disappointing, but in terms of winning 4 more games than the season before and having our best season in terms of wins, since 2011, that is unequivocally successful. 2023 speaks for itself. We all know we made a prelim. I don't need to go too deep into that. 2024 is the point of conjecture as to whether or not you want to say it was a bad year or not. For mine, I'd put it in the disappointing category, not in the bad category. The reason for that is context has to matter. Again, we had been so woefully disappointing in the 10-odd years before Michael Voss had come to the club. We still ended up winning 13 games with a percentage of 110. Again, a strong season that, barring the other Michael Voss years, would have been our best year since 2011. Again, not great how it all finished up, but that said, I don't think it's a bad year. It was more a missed opportunity. And people want to talk about injuries. I think we were desperately out of form by the end of the year. My point is, I would not count 2024 as the first bad year under Michael Voss. Therefore, by my estimate, the only truly bad year, not just merely disappointing, is 2025. If that's the case, as I said, I don't believe good clubs fire coaches after 1 bad season. The other question that I've seen sort of floating around that's sort of making me scratch my head a little bit is, if the club really backed him in, why did they not extend him? For mine, this criticism seems to be coming from people that think he should have got sacked. You can't both say he should have got sacked and he should have been extended. That doesn't make any sense. If the club had extended him, you would have absolutely rinsed them for extending him. So it's not both. It's one or the other. As said before, though, it's very common for coaches to get sacked with a year to go. So it does make sense that we came out and made the statement, just to confirm that based on how the league is traditionally covered, we are not going to continue the trend of firing coaches with a year to go. It is reasonable to say we are keeping Voss because we don't think he is the root cause of our problems. Some of the things he does might contribute, but he's not the root cause. And we can change things around him, which I'll get to in a little bit. So, if the club really backed him in, why didn't they extend him? Frankly, they didn't need to. And it only would have increased the liability for the club if we did extend him. If we come out and we're great next year, extend him then. If he's not, you still have the flexibility to do what you need to do. If you don't think he's the root cause and we get a little bit more information that suggests he might be, that's when you can make the move. Because then maybe he was the root cause. The other criticism I've seen is of the email itself. It says Voss will be the coach into 2026. It doesn't say for all of 2026. Again, this is one of those arguments where you can't have it both ways. You can't simultaneously say he should have been sacked, but then also say he should be given a 100% mandate for all of 2026. If he starts 0-10, just to choose a ridiculous example, he's going to get sacked. That's the normal thing to do. If you're in the last year of your deal and you're underperforming, you get sacked. I think it would be a little bit odd for the club to come out and make a promise that is so far-reaching. This is the normal thing to do. This is the non-knee-jerk thing to do. Additionally, as I just mentioned, if Voss can't make things work next year with improved conditions that we're expecting to see in the off-season, then it will be the end of his tenure. And I think that that is the logical thing to do. If you've stepped through the process of saying, firstly, we don't think Voss is the root cause of our problems, we're going to try to address the root cause, and then subsequently you underperform again, maybe he is the root cause, and at that time you make the move. It doesn't make sense to do both things at the same time, though. So, what's my actual take? First things first, I'm really happy with it. I might not sound like it because I've had to go through a bit of the boring stuff first, but I'm actually really happy with the decision. My view all season is that the issue is not Michael Voss, at least not on his own. Like all analysis done by people outside of the club though, I'm only basing this on circumstantial evidence. So let's discuss some of the circumstances. First and foremost, we're the worst kicking team in the league. Definitively. We're worse than West Coast, a one-win team in terms of kicking and kicking inside 50. No one's game plan has ever succeeded under those terms. Additionally, many of the players that are up for their third or even fourth full-time coach, so not counting interims, have been, well, you can say at the minimum they've seen a lot of coaches getting sacked. Whether or not they were, prompting it to occur is a different story. I don't need to speculate on that. I think this bucks the trend of the tail wagging the dog. The coach, if they've lost the group, should get moved on. But as I'll come to shortly, I don't think Michael Voss has actually lost the group. Maybe segments of the group, and that's the tail. It should not be wagging the dog. Additionally, I don't think Michael Voss has been all that well supported. Just to have a look at the assistants in 2022 when Voss first arrived, these were our assistant coaches, and they should sound familiar. Aaron Hamill, Tim Clark, Ash Hansen, Aaron Greaves. They all joined the club that year. Jordan Russell joined for the 2024 season, and from what I can tell, it was part of a reshuffle because I couldn't find that another coach got moved out. The point is, Voss's support crew has been the same literally the entire time he's been at the club with the addition of Jordan Russell. And for all those people who want Voss fired, I know what you think of Jordan Russell. It is therefore equally reasonable to say it could be Voss's fault or it could be the supports around him, but we have more circumstances to go through. Has the side changed for the better under Michael Voss? Now, for everyone out there who's going to say, oh, but it's his team, it's moulded in his image, you need to actually do some moulding. And I'm going to show that since 2022, the list management have not done a hell of a lot of moulding. The list in picture with me now is from the last round of 2022. I picked the last round because the team from the first round was quite different, and I think the last round shows Michael Voss sort of putting his mandate on how he wants the team to be after getting more data over the course of the season. So, the only players that are not there that are still currently on our list are Caleb Marchbank, Liam Stocker, Zach Fisher, Lockie O'Brien, Matt Owies, Jack Martin, and Will Setterfield. I think you can say with a good degree of confidence, the only player of significance that we have lost is Jack Martin. If you want to throw Matt Owies in there, I'm not really going to argue with you, but personally, I'm never been the biggest Owies fan. I thought he was nice, not a game-changing forward. So, that's the superficiality of the changes to our list since 2022. Additionally, when you look at the guys that have missed at least 6 games this year, it becomes quite illuminating because some of these guys even played in that team in picture with me now. Sam Walsh, Harry, Jack Silvani, Nick Newman, Lockie Cowan, Matt Cottrell, Elijah, Brody Kemp, and Jagger Smith. All missed at least 6 games this year through injury. Elijah Holland. Sorry, I shortchanged you your last name, Elijah, if you're watching. That is a list of 9 guys who missed at least 6 games, and all of them would have been best 23. If you don't want to count Jagger because he's a first-year player, that's fair enough. I'm not saying he would have come in and been All-Australian. I'm saying he would have played. He definitely would have made our best team. So, whether these guys be starting players that are significant to the team, like Walshy, Harry, Nick Newman, or more fringe players but still play regular roles in the side, that's 9 guys who have missed 6+ games this year. I would say that is a circumstance out of Michael Voss's control. Additionally, many people blame the game plan. Now, like I said, this is circumstantial evidence. So, my understanding is the head coach is more of a coordinator of the whole program, not the actual tactician or the strategist. The tactical responsibility falls more on other assistants. I don't want to name who I believe is in charge of both the macro level game plan and also the day-to-day stuff, because I don't think it needs to be done. It just seems a little bit unfair because I am basing this on circumstantial evidence. The point is, though, it's not Voss specifically. He's more of a coordinator of the whole program. So while he is responsible for the overall implementation, if the plan is bad or the moves made on the day are bad or the line coaches during the week are not getting their players up to snuff, then I'm not as inclined to blame Michael Voss because, you know, a chain's only as strong as its weakest link. And if there's other links around Michael Voss that are not sufficiently strong, it is difficult for him to be able to get the program rolling. There's also been a lot of player disruption this year. There's Tom de Koning and Jack Silvani, who are rumoured to be on the way out. I think we can say with Jack Silvani, given it appears that he is the one leaking things to the media, about his situation, or at least his camp is, it appears he's very disgruntled. There's also a number of other players who are quite disgruntled, and without naming names, because they are more circumstantial evidence is being used for me to make the claim. The players who are apparently disgruntled are what I will refer to as the non-premium veterans. So the premium veterans are Cripps, Walsh, Wiedering, Harry, and I'm happy to cut the list off there. Not to say that some of the other players I haven't named aren't also very, very good. I'm just going to leave my list there. Because in part, I don't necessarily know for certain players. Like one person I'm happy to say I have no idea about is Sam Walsh. But then there are other players, non-premium veterans, who I'm much more confident are part of the player disruption. This goes back to something that I said earlier, the tail wagging the dog. I don't think you can look at this season and definitively say that Voss has lost the group. I know we looked rudderless against Collingwood and Brisbane, whilst they were sitting first and second on the ladder respectively at the time. The games against Melbourne and Fremantle suggest the players are still having a crack. They might be a little bit rudderless, but they're trying, which is the indication as to whether or not Voss has lost the group. So, if it's a minority of players who are being disruptive, not the majority of the list, I'd rather cut them than fire the head coach. If we fire the head coach and the disgruntled players were to remain, I feel you're just emboldening them. They will likely get up to the same sort of antics if they don't like the new coach. And this is a criticism that has actually been levelled at our players before, when they had other coaches, for example, Brendan Bolton and David Teague, fired. We have seen it at other clubs as well. You don't want the players so emboldened that they think that they can just remove the coach if it's not going the way they want it to. So, that brings me to something that Graham Wright specifically said. Voss comes to the club every day trying to make it better. By definition, you can't say the same things about the disgruntled players. If they're worried about their money, if they're worried about their role, they are worrying about themselves above the club, at least in those elements. Maybe not on the whole, but they are not 100% pulling in the right direction. Therefore, I'd rather keep the guy who definitely has the club's best interest at heart, rather than those who are acting more out of self-interest. Additionally, Voss's deficiencies can be overcome through support. The biggest knock on Michael Voss, in my opinion, is the game plan. However, there are other examples of really good runs in the league where the main tactician was not the head coach. Hinkley was apparently the mastermind behind Geelong's game plan in 2007 and ran through the period until he got a job himself at Port Adelaide. Blake Caracella was apparently largely responsible for Richmond's changing game plan through their run as well. There may be other examples, and while there are also other coaches that might be the tactical mastermind, for example, I believe Alistair Clarkson was largely responsible for their tactical moves, the point is, with the right support around Voss, you can make a change and have some amount of sustained success. Finally, getting behind the head coach, who a lot of people, I won't say everyone, but a lot of people were baying for his blood, sends a very clear message. To the players who are disgruntled with Voss, well, if you can't come to terms with it, you know who the club's backing for next year, make appropriate arrangements. To the supporters who want him sacked, you don't have to come to the games. You don't have to back him in. I've seen a lot of people saying, I'll tear my membership up, I'm not going to go for the club anymore if they keep Voss, if they don't keep Jack, things like that. That's up to you, honestly. If you can't come to grips with what the club has done, fair enough. I'm not going to criticise you for it. I just hope that you're true with your words. Otherwise, there is one other option for you, and that is take a breath, see how it pans out. If the club goes well in 2026, you're welcome back. After a long breather, because I understand when you want a particular decision made and it's not made, that can be hard to stomach. I'm not here to criticise anyone for that. We're all passionate. I hope we all want to see the club go well, and I think the club making decisions in its best interests without influence from external sources is something which will help the club finally move in a direction where it's not being pulled apart from the outside or even from within. I personally think it's the right move. For everyone who doesn't, that's cool. Like I mentioned, take a breath. Let's see how we're going midway through next season. If we're going well, I hope to see you on the run home on the way to the finals. If we're not, we know what's going to happen to Michael Voss. I think this is the sign that the club is finally somewhat unified in terms of the management through to the football department. This is something the club has not always enjoyed. So me personally, I'm wrapped. As always, go Blues.